Hey, welcome to the next video in our database application for Enterprise Java. I'm going to start with creating the create new form here. So this is the first thing that we're going to do, and we'll take that through step by step. Now I just want to let you know that everything that I'm going to show you is coming from the tutorial pages on the official Oracle documentation. So I'm looking at this page for Enterprise Java. I'm looking at version 7 and clicking tutorial. So the tutorial is going to give us a lot of information and very technical information. I'm going to basically pick the highlights of it just so that you can have the simplest application possible. So I'm going to pick part 3. We're going to jump right in here at the web tier. So probably the first place we should start, I think, is in chapter 10. Using the Java Server Faces technology in web pages. So I'm going to pick the part setting up a page. Now, the reason why I picked this is because it's the first thing you're going to see when you create a new page using this enterprise technology. This is the header for a web page. Now to see this in action, I'm going to switch back into my JBoss Studio. I've got the Beautiful Things app here, but I'm going to create a brand new application. So I'm going to choose New Dynamic Web Project. And this will create a web page based on the work that we've done so far. So let's call this thing Beautiful Things, and let's call it Web Application. And let's see, I'm going to use the Java Runtime 7, and it looks like it's all pretty good, so let's click Finish. Now it says my perspective wants to change. We were programming in normal Java, so we're going to switch to the Java Enterprise, and now we have ourselves a new app. Let's see what's in here. So Java resources should look familiar. We have the source file, and we're going to put all our classes there. A folder that we're going to use a lot is called Web Content. Inside this Web Content folder is where we're going to be creating our new web pages. I'm going to close the previous stuff that we were working on. Now I'm going to create a brand new file, and this is where you're going to see the new type of web page. So let's see, this is the new file. We're going to call this thing entry form, and XHTML is what I'm going to call it, and finish. Now see what I mean? At the top of the page we've got ourselves a starter code. These lines up here define what are called the facelets, or the faces of the Java Enterprise programming. The key terms that you're going to see are there's a prefix called UI, one called F, and another called H. And so these determine certain libraries where you can create tags that are linked directly to your data. So for instance, if you have an input text box and you have it linked to your data, it'll automatically fill in the box with the first and last name. So it eliminates a lot of unnecessary programming. I'm going to start just by clearing out everything that's on the page. Let's see if we can go simple here. So we've got ourselves the body, and it looks like we need a beginning, and there we have it. We'll put the header in later, but for right now we're just going to do the body. Now we should be able to just put in normal HTML information in here. So I'm going to put in a message, please fill out the form, and then I'm going to put in a bunch of text below, and then we're going to actually save the changes, and I'm going to right click on entry form, and let's see if we can do run as, run on server, and now we have the JBoss 7 picked. If you don't have a server set up here, we can click on manually define a new server and go through that process, but for right now I'm just going to run it here, and we should have a web page show up in just a jiffy. So here is my page. This is a web page running. Tells me the HTML code here. I could take this URL and copy it, press Control-C, and I'm going to switch into my Chrome browser, and let's paste the URL and let's see what comes up. So the same thing happens here. Notice I'm getting my web page from the local host. So JBoss has a web server built into it, and that's how we're able to see these pages. Okay, let's close that. Now, the advantage of using Java Enterprise is that you can take your classes that have data in them and automatically include them into your page. So we need some data. Let's go back to our beautiful things, and I'm going to take the previous project and borrow some classes from it. So we got beans. Let's make a project, or make a package called beans, and then we'll copy those two beans into it. So let's take beautiful things and beautiful thing, and we'll go copy, and let's paste them into here. Okay, so now my project has a beautiful thing in it. We'll talk about the database in a minute, but for right now, let's take a look at what this beautiful thing can do. So let's go back into the entry form. So if I were just doing generic HTML, I would type in open bracket and form, and then a close bracket. That would work, but in our case, we're going to have a little bit smarter type of HTML. I'm going to type in open bracket, wait, and type H, colon, and now I start to see some of these HTML templates coming up here. Where did I come up with H? Well, that's this letter here that is for one of the templates that we can use. So H, and I'm looking for the word form, and I'll close it off. So on my input page, I might say, tell me something nice. And now the type of input is going to be another H, and I'm going to use the colon and then input text. And then here is where the nice part comes in. I am able to take one of these beans here with a beautiful thing and automatically integrate it right into my page. If I type in a pound sign and a bracket, okay, so I'm expecting some kind of a type ahead here, and I'm not getting it. So I'm going to right-click on the Beautiful Things web app title, move all the way down to the Properties menu and click, and I'm looking for the item called Project Facets. And the item that we should check here is the Java Server Faces. And so this allows us to integrate our managed beans in with our forms. Now, you still haven't seen what a managed bean actually is and what it's supposed to do. Let's go into the web app and make sure that we're in this newer version. Double click on Beautiful Thing, and right before the class title, let's put in an @ symbol and the word managed bean, all one word with a capital M and a capital B. And then you see the options for importing things. We want to make sure that we get the one from Faces Bean, and then we have ourselves a managed bean. We're also going to add something called View Scoped, and we'll explain that later, but let's import this as well from the same option. And now what that does is it pretty much automatically synchronizes all of the classes and all the methods of the class with the web page. Let's see what that works like now. So I'm going back to entry form, and I'm going to go and retype my little symbols here that I was working with earlier. So inside the value of this text input, I type a pound sign and an open bracket, and now I have what I was expecting earlier. So it recognized that there is a class in my project that is a managed bean. It's called a Beautiful Thing. So let's double click it. I'm going to place the cursor right after the letter G and type a period. And now I can see all of the properties that are supposedly with the managed bean. So tell me something nice. Let's start with the title, and then we can add some more fields. So say now describe it. And let's put in another input. So I got a open bracket H, and let's go input again, input text. This time it seems to automatically be filling out things like I expected. So Beautiful Thing, and this time I'm going to put a period and say this is the thing description. And lastly, we need a rating. So let's go with a rate this item, and let's put in another H. And for now I'm going to put in a input text, but I'm going to change that later to a more of a drop-down menu. So let's call this thing rating. And then the last item on a form is a button. So let's go H, and it's called a command button, and the action and the value. So the value is going to be submit, or we could just say OK. It doesn't really matter what you put there. But the action is going to come from another resource that we're going to create soon. So let's call this to be done later. Okay, so that is going to be what we're going to create for our first form. Now, the next step is to create this handler event, and we don't have any classes to do that yet, so we'll save that for the next video.